Namaste, Namaskar, good afternoon. Welcome to virtual class of grade 10. Dear students, listeners, and viewers, I am Dr. Chandeshwar Yadav again before you with English subject. Dear students, last day we started direct and indirect speech, or we have studied narration, in which rules of narration or direct to indirect speech we have talked, and we have studied that there are two types of speech: direct speech and indirect speech. Even you have studied indirect speech, two parts are there. One part reporting speech and another part reported speech. In the same way, you have studied whenever changing from direct speech to indirect speech, basically three things you should do, as change of person, change of tense, and change of other parts of speech. In the same way, omission of comma and inverted comma, and the use of connector instead of comma and inverted comma in indirect speech. So dear student, this thing we have last day discussed. Even we have talked about change of person, first person, second person, and third person. First person according to subject of reporting speech, or first person of reported speech can be changed into indirect speech according to subject of reporting speech. In the same way, second person according to object of reporting speech. And I hope, dear student, you have also studied, you have known that third person requires no change. So this is about change of person or pronoun. Even, my dear students, you have studied change of tense. So how tenses are changed, that thing in the last day we have already discussed. That's why I don't think that today it is necessary to talk about that thing. In the same way, as we have also discussed about change of other parts of a speech whenever changing from direct speech to indirect speech, or as you have studied, as you know, this can be changed into that, this can be those, here can be there, today, that day. In this way, even you have studied about change of other parts of speech. So dear student, Even in the last class, we have talked that even modal verb can be changed, and we have studied about that thing. So even there is no need of talking about these modal verbs whenever changing from direct speech to indirect speech. So, my dear student, even we have discussed about the types of sentence and which sentence can be changed into, how even little bit we discussed in the last class. And so from today we are going to talk about the sentences, how assertive sentence can be changed into in indirect form. That thing today we are going to talk. So dear student, try to listen carefully and try to understand, even though we have talked about assertive sentence in the last class. However, I like to make you remember, make you remind how assertive sentence can be changed into indirect form that we are talking here. So as you know, said to can be changed into told, and instead of comma and inverted comma as a connector, whenever changing from direct speech to indirect speech, you should use that as a connector. In the same way, other rule as just we have talked last day. So one example I am presenting here. He said to me, Nepal will win COVID-19. He said to me, Nepal will win COVID-19. This one is one of the direct speech, and changing it into indirect speech, it became, he told me that Nepal would win COVID-19. So here, as you can see in the given sentence, said to is changed into told, and comma and inverted comma can be changed into that, and will is changed into would. So these are the things you have to do whenever you are changing from direct speech to indirect speech, basically if the sentence is assertive sentence. So this is about assertive sentence, dear student, and I hope you have already understood it. So now let's talk about another type of sentence, and this another type of sentence is exclamatory sentence, or changes in exclamatory sentence in indirect speech. So whenever changing exclamatory sentence into indirect speech, then what you should do, try to listen carefully. So in exclamatory sentences, do all changes as it is, just we use for. So here, as whether it is exclamatory sentence or assertive sentence or imperative sentence, the common thing is that the change of person, the change of tense, and change of other parts of speech remain as it is. But here in exclamatory sentence, something we should do. So if the sentence, or basically a reported speech, shows happiness, if the sentence shows happiness, then instead of said to, you should use exclaimed with happiness. Whenever happiness is there, then you should use exclaimed with happiness. In the same way, if sad is expressed there, if sad is there, then you should use exclaimed with sorrow, or sad can be changed into exclaimed with sorrow whenever the sentence express sadness. In the same way, if the sentence shows surprise, listen it carefully, dear student, sentence express surprise, then sad can be changed into exclaimed with wonder or exclaimed with surprise. So dear student, you have to keep this thing in your mind. So whenever you are changing direct speech into indirect speech, if the sentence is exclamatory sentence, so this thing you should do. In the same way, in exclamatory sentence, instead of comma and instead of inverted comma, you should use that as a connector. So this is just like assertive sentence. So as you have studied, in assertive sentence, as a connector that is used, in the same way here in exclamatory sentence there is also use of that in that as a connector whenever changing it into indirect speech. So one example I am presenting here in the slide. You can see one example, and example is, he said, "Hurrah, I won a prize." He said, "Hurrah, I won a prize." This is the sentence written in direct speech, and whatever part is in inverted comma, that is exclamatory sentence. So whenever changing it into indirect speech, you can say, he exclaimed with joy that he had won a prize. He exclaimed with joy that he had won a prize. This is the sentence written in indirect speech. So here you can see said is changed into exclaimed with joy, because here in direct speech hurrah is used there, and hurrah that shows happiness. That's why whenever sentence shows happiness, then it is better to use exclaimed with joy. So this is one thing. Another thing is here comma and inverted comma is changed into that, as just I have said you that comma and inverted comma can be changed into that. That's why here even in this sentence that is used. Other thing, you can see I is changed into he, because as you have studied, first person can be changed into indirect speech according to a subject of a reporting speech. So here the subject of a reporting speech is he. That's why I can be changed here into he. And other thing, as you have studied, second form of verb or V2 can be changed into had V3, or past simple tense can be changed into past perfect tense if reporting verb is in the past tense. So here in this sentence, a reporting verb that is said here, and said is V2 or past simple. That's why here in the indirect speech he had won a prize, or in the past perfect tense that is changed. So in this way he said, "Hurrah, I won a prize" is the direct speech, and its indirect speech become, he exclaimed with joy that he had won a prize. So this is about exclamatory sentence, dear student. So again I would like to suggest you to remember these points. Happiness can be changed into exclaimed with happiness. Sad can be changed into exclaimed with sorrow. Surprise can be changed into exclaimed with wonder or surprise. So this thing you should keep in your mind, and it is better to write down in your notebook and do practice so that you can do it easily. So dear student, this is about exclamatory sentence. So now let's talk about interrogative sentence. So whenever interrogative sentences is there, at that time we should do or we should change the following sentence or interrogative sentence as here said. So here, for changing interrogative sentence or question into indirect speech, we have to observe the nature of question and then change it into indirect speech according to its rule for indirect speech. So whenever changing the interrogative sentence into indirect speech, you should know the or you should understand the nature of the question, and understanding the nature of the question you should change the sentence as it has some rules. So interrogative sentence or question can be of two types, or there are two types of question. One type of question which can be answered in only yes no form, and the question that can be answered in yes no form, that is called yes no question. Dear student, I hope you know yes no question, because and generally yes no question starts with auxiliary verb. That's why if the question is yes no question, then one type of rule is used there. In the same way, other type which needs a little bit explanation for its answer and cannot be answered in yes no form. So another type of question, that is WS question, and this WS question can't be answered into yes no form. So for yes no question, one type of rule is there, and for WS question another type of rule is there. So now let's talk about first yes no question. So as I have just said you that if the sentence is in yes no form, then you should do the following thing. So instead of said, you should use asked if the sentence is in the or tense is in the past tense, or if reporting verb is in past form or said is there, then said can be changed into asked. In the same way, as one example is here, so let's try to understand the example carefully. So as he said, she said, will he participate in the quiz competition? Will he participate in the quiz competition? This is the sentence written in question form. And here you can see the question starts with will, that is one of the modal verb, that is one of the auxiliary verb. It means this sentence is or this question is yes no question. So whenever yes no question is there, then you should change as here changed. So its indirect speech become, she asked me if he would participate in the quiz competition. She asked me if he would participate in the quiz competition become the indirect speech. So dear student, even whenever understanding this sentence, then you can see here said is changed into asked. Other thing, instead of comma and inverted comma, here if is used. But as you have studied in assertive sentence, in and in exclamative sentence, instead of comma and inverted comma, that is used there. But in this as no question, instead of comma and inverted comma, either you can use if or you can use whether. So in the given sentence, in the given example, you can see here if is used. So if is here as a connector, then after other things are as usual. As you have studied here, he is here and he is the third person. That's why this he is not changed into other form of person. In this way, this is about indirect speech of assertive interrogative sentence. So again, try to understand it uh, clearly. I am repeating it. If the question is as no question, then said to can be changed into asked. And for comma and inverted comma, you can use either if or whether. And other thing, that question mark can be changed into full stop, or question can be changed into a statement form, or as no question can be changed into assertive sentence. So this is about direct from indirect speech of interrogative sentence, dear student. In the same way, another type of question is WS question. As just we have talked that there are two types of question. One is yes no question and another is WS question. So whenever question is WS question, that generally or mostly starts with WS word. So if the question starts with WS word, then there is no need of using connector. So as we have just talked that in yes no question, as a connector if or whether is used, but if the sentence is in the question form, basically WS question is there, then there is no need of using connector. Other thing, as just I have said you, change the question into a statement. So if the sentence is in question form, then that question can be changed into a statement, or in assertive form, or first then, as you have studied that whenever a sentence is assertive sentence, then subject is there, then after auxiliary verb is there, then after main verb is there. That thing you should do. And other thing, as just we have talked, in question form, either it is yes no question or it is WS question. So in both these question, or the question ends with question marks. So whenever changing such type of question into indirect speech, then question mark can be changed into full stop. So as one example is here, and so try to understand the example. So example is, he said to me, what is your name? He said to me, comma, uh, inverted comma is there, what is your name? And then after question mark is there. So this is the sentence written in WS question. And whenever changing this question into indirect speech, its indirect become, he asked me what my name was. He asked me what my name was. So here Again you can see said to is changed into asked. Said to is changed into asked, and here instead of comma and inverted comma, no any connector is used, or only what is there. Then after in the question you can see first auxiliary verb is there, then after subject is there. But in indirect speech, first of all subject come, then after auxiliary verb. So that here he said to me, what is your name? That is the direct speech can be changed into indirect speech as he asked me what my name was. So dear student, you should change the WS question into indirect speech in this way. So I hope you have understood about this question. Now let's talk about imperative sentence. So talking about imperative sentence, I hope that you know what type of sentence is called imperative sentence. So let me remind you, imperative sentence are those sentences which mostly starts with V1, which either gives order, request, advice or suggestion. So for this thing, this imperative sentence is used. So whenever changing the imperative sentence into indirect speech, you should do this thing. So to change imperative sentence into indirect speech, the word ordered or requested or advised or suggested is added to reporting verb depending upon nature of imperative sentence in reported speech. So what is the nature of direct speech? According to that nature, you can use order or request or advise or suggest, because imperative sentence mostly talks about this thing. So let me present one example. So as one example is here, he said to me, please help me. He said to me, please help me is here. So this is the sentence written in direct speech, and here its indirect speech is made. He requested me to help him. So here what you see in the direct speech, please is used there and please shows a request. That's why here said to is changed into requested. Then after, as you can see, as a connector, to is used here and other thing are as it is. So from this example you should learn that if imperative sentence talks about request, then after said to can be changed into requested, and instead of comma and inverted comma you should use to. Then after, as we have talked about change of person, change of tense and change of other parts of speech. So this is about imperative sentence, dear student. Now one more thing that you should know about imperative sentence. So sometimes imperative sentence are in negative form. So if sentences are or imperative sentences are in negative form, then don't or do not of reported speech is changed into not to plus v1 plus other words, or don't or not to can be changed into do not can change into not to. So as one example I have presented here, so try to understand the example carefully. He said to the boys, don't make a noise. He said to the boys, don't make a noise. So this is the sentence written in direct speech, and here its indirect is he asked the boys not to make a noise. He asked the boys not to make a noise. In the same way, another example is here also. So he said, don't be foolish. He said, don't be foolish. This is the sentence written in direct speech. So its indirect is he he told me not to be foolish. He told me not to be foolish. So here again you should learn that according to the nature of the sentence, said to can be changed into asked, or said can be changed into told, and sentence is negative sentence. That's why don't or do not can be changed into not to in the or instead of comma and inverted comma in imperative sentence in negative form. Not to what do not or don't can be changed into not to, dear student. So in this way you can change the sentence into, or you can change direct speech into indirect speech, my dear student. So today even it is enough. So on other day we will discuss further. So thank you, my dear student. Even if you have any confusion about today's study, you can contact with me. My phone number is 9844072807. Even you can contact with me at my email ID. My email ID is sandeshwaryadav15 at the rate of gmail.com. This is my email number. So thank you, my dear student. Have a nice day. Thank you.